The Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show is sponsored by Accunet Mortgage, an equal housing lender at NMLS ID 255368, and Accunet Realty Advisors, which is a separate company from but still affiliated with Accunet Mortgage.
Putting a roof over your head without the headache. Get answers to all of your home buying questions. This is the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
And welcome to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show. I'm Mark Singris, along with Accunet Mortgage and Accunet Realty Advisors, owner Brian Wickert and Chief Millennial Loan Consultant David Wickert. Now, if you have a question or comment, give us a call or text. Text us on the Accunet Mortgage Talk and Text line at the simple number of 414-799-1620. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you doing today?
Well, good morning and welcome to the show. We're glad to have you with us this morning, Mark.
I want to let you know I've been looking forward to this. I'm a fan of your show. I learn something every time I hear you guys, and thanks for letting me be a part of it.
You bet, you bet. Just feel free to ask a question. You are the representative of the audience, Mark. So if you're thinking of a question, chances are there are hundreds or dozens or at least one other person out there asking the same question in their own mind.
Okay, guys, this sounds great.
We're getting started this morning with an interesting situation I had this week. A customer that I financed back in 2014, I helped him buy his first house, and this happens to be in Polk County, Florida, which is the county between Orlando and Tampa.
Oh, okay.
And so this guy happens to work at Disney World. He's a professional entertainer, and so he bought this place in Florida. He paid about $140,000 in the early part. I think he closed in March of 2014. He put 20% down at the time, and at that time it was a bona fide, owner-occupied, single-family, detached property. Then in early 2015, he started experimenting and renting out his house on Airbnb. So, when he could rent it out, he did, and then he'd go, stay at a friend's house, and then when he wasn't, he'd move back in. Well, by 2016, this was catching on so well for him that he moved out, and he is now renting a condo with a buddy, and he is renting out this single-family home in Davenport, Florida, as much as he can through Airbnb.
Yeah.
And he is clearing about $10,000 a year in income.
Wow.
Not bad. All right, so now I get the call from a good friend of his who lives up here in Wisconsin. This guy is in his late 30s. He's got 3 kids. He's got a good job. And he and his wife have saved up $40,000. And they were at first thinking, hey, we'll buy a student rental property because they live near a college town in northwestern Wisconsin, where your mother graduated.
Blue Golds.
The UW Eau Claire campus. So he was looking at buying that rental property. Okay, he's thinking, what if I put $20,000 into this property, because you can buy it for maybe $105,000 up there. Okay. So if I put 15% down, let's say with all the expenses, $20,000, I can maybe clear $2,000 a year. That's a 10% cash on cash return on investment. And then, by the way, you also are paying the rental payment that you're getting is paying down your mortgage, so you're gaining equity in the property. And you also get this thing called depreciation, which you get to pretend the property's going down in value, and so that shelters some of your income. So all in all, though, let's just stick with the cash-on-cash return 10%. But then he's talking to his buddy in Florida who says, well, wait a minute. If you bought a $165,000 single-family detached home down here as a rental property, you could probably clear $8,000. So the question that I solved yesterday for him was, could he afford it? The answer was yes. What would the monthly payment be? The answer is just a little bit under $1,000 a month is what his monthly nut would be on this place, because property taxes are really cheap in Florida. And then his total investment would be right around $40,000, because closing costs are higher in Florida. Being a non-owner occupied house, he'd have to pay a little over 2.5 points, which is interest in advance, in order to get the mortgage. But now he's looking at, I could clear $8,000 on a $40,000 investment. So that's a 20% cash on cash return. All right, Mark, so your chance to opine, and I'm withholding one key bit of information. I want to know, I'm going to trick you.
Okay.
Which would you do? Would you go with the remote Airbnb Florida property where you can get a 20% return, or would you take the more local, I can manage it myself, in Eau Claire student housing 10% return?
Well, from a management point of view, I would assume that, being a Wisconsin person, at least I could drive up to the property, I could check on it, I could make visits, see how it's going. But the return in Florida strikes me as being more advantageous.
Yeah. Double, David?
I would do neither.
Okay, David's in the neither camp.
I would do the
Really?
cash in my savings account. Yeah.
Savings account? What about putting it in the stock market, Mr. X
yes,
Series 7's financial
there's
advisor
that
guy?
too, but the hassle factor is just not.
We should point out that in Florida, the idea is that his friend who lives in Orlando is going to manage the property for him, kind of take care of everything. And I've already got that factored into this $8,000 net, because I'm thinking if he's got maybe he'll get $10,000 like his friend, and he's going to have to pay $2,000 to his friend to manage it. So you're still in the no camp. All right, now I am going to, how are we doing now? You know what? When we come back, I am going to reveal what I think is the major fly in the ointment of going the Airbnb rental in Florida route when we come back.
Interesting. Well, you're listening to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on 620 WTMJ. If you have a question or comment, call or text us on the Accunet Mortgage Talk and Text line. The number is 414-799-1620.
Home buying advice from the guys who know it best. This is the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
Now that the House passed a budget last week, tax reform is squarely on the docket. So how smooth a process will this be, and is reform still possible by the end of the calendar year? Well, House Speaker Paul Ryan addresses that and more when he joins John and Melissa at 4:20 tomorrow during Wisconsin's Afternoon News. Gentlemen, when we left our conversation, I think we were talking about the possibility of investing or not in that B&B in Florida.
Yep, Florida. The question on the table is, hey, would you rather buy student housing in Eau Claire or buy a single-family home with the intention of renting it out and short-term rentals through like a Airbnb or VRBO in the Orlando area? Because you could get double the return on investment in Florida. All right, so the piece of information that I have withheld is that you can't actually do Airbnb rentals in the Orlando area. Why do you think that might be, David?
Oh, because the city fathers don't like short-term rentals.
Correct, because they're trying to protect what industry? Hotel?
Disney?
Yeah, Disney, right, Disney and the hotel industry. So this guy already knows that because of his friend down there. So I don't know if it's county by county or municipality by municipality. I think it's more on the municipality level. But he knows that it's restricted, that you cannot do short-term rentals in some municipalities down there. In fact, in the research that I did this morning, most of the municipalities are hair on fire concerned about the super-duper boom in Airbnb rentals, because what do you have happen? And you and I, we've stayed in some of these places, right?
Yeah.
You turn a residential neighborhood into a potential hotel neighborhood.
Yes.
And so if you're the poor guy that's just trying to live there and raise your 2 kids, you all of a sudden have 8 people staying in the house next door that, was designed and zoned to be residential. And now it's a hotel. And noisy parties and drinking and, people coming in late at all hours and so on and so forth. So this is a huge concern of property owners, and this is a big legislative issue in the state of Florida. So what if you buy this thing down there, and then the municipality that you bought in flips and says, no more short-term rentals?
How are they going to police that? But, okay.
Well, they can.
Okay.
They have police. So
suddenly I own this property that I can't rent and I'm not getting any return on it, and suddenly all my cash is stuck in this house that I then have to sell if I want to liquidate.
And might it be worth less if now you can't, if part of the calculus for this town, and it's not going to be all of it, but if part of the calculus for this neighborhood was...
And the value in the neighborhood.
That it was really good rental property, and now all of a sudden, now I just have to rent it out by the month. By the way, the definition of short-term rental is 29 days or less. I read that. At least that's the definition in Florida.
Fit February in there, yeah.
Right. And so that's that would dampen my enthusiasm for that, knowing that big risk out there. So it'll be interesting to see what this gentleman decides to do.
I have a question, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I'm really intrigued by this. How would a potential investor even know that might be on the horizon, that change?
Read the minutes of the city council meeting, I guess.
Correct. And so this particular guy from Eau Claire knows because his friend lives in Orlando and is kind of coaching him. And so he's, forthright and says, hey, you got to know that you can't just do this everywhere. There are certain municipalities where they ban the short term. But this is exactly, Mark, you hit the nail on the head. Human nature is to assume two things. Everything's okay, and everything's going to stay okay.
Yeah.
This is the state of our human condition, okay? And that's why, one of the other considerations for this fellow was whether to buy a condo. And, in addition to having municipal laws and ordinances, the condo association can impose restrictions on things like how often can you rent and to whom. So there's another layer of risk. So he has decidedly gone away from condo financing towards single family. But, people assume, it's going to stay this way forever. So I think the nugget here is you got to step back and think, what are the risks that I am not thinking of? That I should be thinking of. This is whether you're in business, rental. I mean, that's always investing. You should step back and say, what am I missing here? Is there some big risk? And ask around, ask other people. I think that's the safest thing you can do. All right. The next topic we're going to talk about when we come back we've had a spate of, which is a good thing, of family transactions. I have one case where one sibling is buying out the interest of a vacation home from the three other siblings. And I got another where the grandfather wants to sell a house to his grandson. We're going to talk about some of the things you probably don't know to think about when we come back.
And you're listening to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on 620 WTMJ.
Don't break the bank to get into a house. Back to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
After a 4-game homestand, including the throwback game at the old Mecca Arena, the Bucks are back on the road. They've got a matinee on tap in Atlanta against the Hawks today. Ted Davis hits the air at 2:10 this afternoon with our pregame coverage right here on WTMJ. And you're listening to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show. If you have a question or comment, give us a call or text on the Accunet Mortgage Talk and Text line at 414-799-1620. Guys, back to you.
So we get this frequently, and so I got a call from a grandfather who bought a property 3 years ago, and his grandson has been living in it with his wife while he was going to school, and now the grandson has graduated. And so he wants to now sell the home to his grandson and give him a good deal on it. I think the granddad bought it for a little over $200,000. And of course, what a lot of people think, and people only know what they know, is like, I'm going to sell it to him for $150,000, and I want him to get a mortgage for $150,000. So first question for the chief millennial officer is, could we do that?
Only if he was a military veteran and could take 100%. The answer is no.
Yes, we could. What about the other favorite program?
Or the WIDA first-time homebuyer program, yes.
That's right. So we could accommodate that wish, but
maybe.
What would he have to pay if we went, and he's not a veteran, so he would have to pay either a higher rate or monthly PMI because he would have no equity. Because what people don't know is we have to use the lower of the purchase price or the appraised value. So even in this guy's base case that he walked in the door with, go ahead, Dave.
No, I'm just going to articulate your point. If you sell it to him for $150, but it's actually worth $200, mortgage guys like Accunet have to use the $150,
That's
the
right.
lower of the two.
That's right. And so then the next thing that always happens in the discussion is I or one of our highly trained loan consultants like David would say, well, sir, why don't we set the sales price at $200 and then you can give him a gift of equity for the $50,000 and he'll finance $150 and now he'll have instantly 25% equity, which gets him much better pricing. on the mortgage and no PMI needed. And then usually the next sentence that comes out of the grandfather's mouth is what, David?
I don't want to pay taxes on that gift.
That's right. I don't want to pay any gift tax on that because I understand or believe that the maximum I can give is $14,000. And then the thing that we usually say is, well, are you married, Grandpa? And the grandfather says yes. And then it turns out that our home buyer, the grandson, is also married.
Hey-o.
So the easy workaround is this. It's right in the IRS brochure on gifting and gift and estate taxes. Grandma can give $14,000 to each the grandson and the granddaughter-in-law, so there's 28. And Grandpa can give $14,000 to both the grandson and granddaughter-in-law. Voila! We have $56,000 of gift equity.
Yes.
All right, so no problem. It's like, wow, light bulb goes on. This is fabulous. Let's get it done. But now here's another thing I've noticed, pardon me, in the last two family-related transactions that people forget about. One is, because Grandpa's thinking that if we give the grandson a $150,000 loan, that Grandpa's going to get all that money, the $150,000. Okay? But there's the state of Wisconsin transfer tax. That's set at $3 per thousand, so there's $600. So not a huge deal, but somebody's got to pay it.
Yeah.
Then what about preparing the deed? And our affiliated title company, Lakefront Title, can do that, but it's like $75. Who's going to pay for that? Oh, what about the property taxes from January up through the end of the year? How do you want to handle that,
It's
Grandpa?
going to eat into how much money Grandpa gets, how much he clears.
So then, I also asked him, how much do you want your grandson to pay in closing costs? And I gave him a couple of options. 3.99 we were able to do with no points, which is cool. Or 4.125 with only $236. So the grandson's closing costs are going to be $1,188. So Grandpa's like, well, I don't want him to pay anything at the closing table.
But that's going to eat into Grandpa's what he clears.
Right, because I had to point out to him, the only fresh money coming in here is the $150,000 Accunet is bringing to the table. So it turns out that grandparents are going to walk away with about $143.5 after giving effect to paying the property taxes and then also, by the way, setting up the property taxes for next year. And the only thing the grandson is going to pay is the homeowner's insurance for the first year, which is great. So we got that all engineered. So anybody out there who wants to sell a property to a family member, call Accunet Mortgage.
Yes.
We're good at it, and we'll help you think through all the details that you didn't even know existed. All right, when we come back after the news, we're going to talk about how interest rates are creeping up and the chances of the Federal Reserve hiking rates one more time by the end of the year, after the news.
And you're listening to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show on 620 WTMJ.
Expert advice on buying a home. Here's more of the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
And if you have a question or comment, give us a call or text. Text us on the Accunet Mortgage Talk and text line. The number is 414-799-1620. Gentlemen, back to you.
Rates keep slipping away. At the close of business on Friday, Accunet could offer 3.99% on a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage with 25% equity in all the red stuff. The APR is 4.03. That's with $800 in closing costs. That's slipping away from us 2 or 3 weeks ago is no closing costs. Economic news keeps coming in. That's pretty good. GDP was 3%.
What's the GDP again? What does that stand for?
Gross domestic product.
Which is the measurement of all goods and services produced by the American economy
Correct.
in the course of 3-month period of time. So it's expanding at what kind of an annualized rate?
3%.
Which is higher or lower than expected?
Higher, way higher.
Yeah.
So, never forget, folks, good economic news is most normally bad news for interest rates. So, hey, stock market's up. Things are going well. North Korea hasn't done anything dumb to frighten markets, so rates keep slipping away. I looked up the odds of the Fed raising rates in December. You want to guess what they are?
You told me already, so I'm not. I have my short-term memory is not that bad.
97.8%. The market is so sure that the Fed is going to raise rates in December. There's not even a futures market for them staying the same.
Okay. That is so there's a small chance that somebody thinks that they're going to raise 0.5% instead of a
There
quarter?
is a 2.2% market that thinks they're going to raise 0.5%.
All right. And so the Fed is meeting this coming week, and there's like a 0% chance that they're going to do anything at this meeting.
Correct.
But, everybody will be scrutinizing their minutes and comments and statement and so on and so forth. But it's a mortal lock, as Gene Miller likes to call it, for a Fed rate increase. And that'll put the prime rate up to 4.5.
Okay.
Yeah, 4.5%. And that's the rate at which everybody in America's home equity line of credit is tied.
Correct.
Do you happen to have a home equity line of credit, Mark? Is that something that you're familiar with?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Smart.
So, that's like a big... I have one that I don't use.
Oh.
It's kind of like an emergency borrowing facility, right? But some people use it for remodeling, and it was at 3.5% for so long that people forgot that it was actually an adjustable rate mortgage. Well, it's already been raised 3 times by the Fed. Now this is going to be the 4th. Oh, by the way, they have come right out and told everybody they want to raise rates another 3 times or 0.75% next year. So by this time next year, we're probably going to be talking about a prime rate of 5.25. What does that open up for an opportunity, Mr. Millennial Loan Officer?
To combine that first and second mortgage into one fixed rate. As I say, if you remodeled your kitchen using your home equity line of credit, your kitchen is going to keep getting more expensive as the interest rate on that debt keeps going up.
Yeah. So a good time to do that. Or if you're contemplating doing a remodel right now, like I did this for one of our customers. We did a 30-year fixed cash out refinance. It was a good-sized loan, plenty of equity left. So we were able to give him $75,000 of new money at 3.875, locked in for 3 decades on a 30-year fixed rate.
That's pretty nice.
Because that's a better deal than slapping that on home equity line of credit in most cases, which is a variable rate. What are some other maneuvers that you're seeing on the front lines of mortgage lending that people are refinancing?
A lot of folks who bought a house this spring, or even in the last year or two, we've picked up the phone or taken calls. Hey, I'd like to try to get rid of my monthly PMI.
Oh, yeah.
Because with a summer full of hot sales and a little home value appreciation.
And principal pay down.
We can, if you're paying $80 a month in monthly PMI, and we can
get rid of
that.
Yeah.
Hey, would you like $1,000 every year back in your pocket
for the rest of your born days of owning that house?
Yes.
All right, so that's a good maneuver.
Yes.
The other thing I'm happy to report is that we had a lot of purchase transaction applications, this past week. So there is definitely an extension of the summertime home buying
That's because everyone's going around on Sunday afternoons now because they're not watching football games.
Well, and today will be that. I mean, it's a beautiful sunny day. It is a little chilly out there, but, there are so many people that lost out on home buying this summer.
Right.
Because of all the competing offers that I think those folks are back out there now, and which is a good time. I always say late fall or as we even get into winter, competition's down, and still people are listing their homes,
Correct.
So it could be a better time to find that home that eluded you earlier. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about a couple of interesting tidbits from our friends at Freddie Mac regarding the affordability and advantages of renting after this next break.
And you're listening to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show right here on 620 WTMJ.
Getting you through the home buying process. Welcome back to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
Keith Stanley has made it his life's work to help bring Milwaukee's Near West Side back to the prominence that it once knew. Stanley talks extensively about his passion for the community and the key to revitalization in general when he joins our Mike Spalding during WTMJ Conversations. That's all coming up at 11 o'clock this morning on 620 WTMJ. Guys, I'm enjoying your show. I think before the break you're about to talk about that interesting new report from Freddie Mac.
Yeah, Freddie Mac, we typically talk about and think about as one of the 2 big buyers of the type of mortgages that Accunet makes.
Yes.
Single family, duplex, 3 to 4 unit, and they're giants, with that along with Fannie Mae. But I'm happy to say that I was able to share with David something that he didn't know. That gives a father great pleasure
Yeah.
when he can say something to his son that the son didn't know. And that's that Freddie Mac is a giant player, along with Fannie Mae, in the multifamily or apartment loan. So anything with 5 or more units. So they are a giant player in securitizing loans for 100-unit, 1,000-unit, 500, 200 apartments. So, David, what did you find out in their survey?
Yeah, so they surveyed renters about their opinion about renting versus home ownership.
Okay.
And they found that 76% of millennial renters say that renting is more affordable than owning, which is up from 65%. I just find it ironic. That's asking renters if they like renting. That's like asking Packer fans at Lambeau if they like the Packers. Like, they're already doing it.
Probably right.
Yes.
Right.
So
You know what that means? That 24% think that it's not as affordable. Those are the people that we want to talk to about being a home buyer. What else do they find?
They also found that, I just found this ironic, the baby boomers who are renting, 82% of them think that renting is better, which is like, if you're doing it, obviously you like it.
Mm-hmm.
And which is one of the biggest friction points in the perception that renting is more affordable is the upkeep, maintenance cost of home ownership, which, they're not wrong.
They don't call it a money pit for no reason.
Right. So just pointing out, as home values, I think particularly on the coasts, or even in Chicago, for example, as home values climb, it gets more expensive to own that house versus renting. My personal take is, I have friends in their 20s and 30s who rent across the scale. It's like, if you want to live in a hip place on the east side, you're going to pay more in rent.
$2,000 a month.
Yeah, but you're choosing to do that. There are places like where I live that don't cost that much.
Yeah. Duplex and Wauwatosa is $700, $750 for the upper or something like that.
So I just I'm with you. Like, the renting is a little bit is convenient and flexible. Maybe you have a job. You're working for GE Healthcare and you might be working in New Jersey in 2 years. Maybe you do want to rent.
It's different. The other thing is down payment, which people remember. We can do loans depending on your income level with as little as 0% down on the WIDA 30-year fixed rate loan
or
program.
Even 3% down, and that can come from a gift. Yeah, like from Grandpa.
There you go.
That's a nice Grandpa, by the way.
In that same analysis of their multifamily, Freddie Mac said that they looked at apartment loans they financed twice between the years of 2010 and 2016, and here's a shocking finding. At the initial time of financing, 11% of the apartment units were affordable by very low-income households, and that is defined as households that make 50% or less of the area median income. If you're a mortgage guy, you know that Milwaukee's area median income is $70,200, so half of that is $35,000. So what Freddie Mac is saying is that 1 out of 10, basically, of the apartment units that they financed were affordable to people making that very low income threshold. When they refinanced that same apartment building, it dropped down to 1 out of 25.
Okay.
That is a housing crisis for very low-income households. When I can't afford that anymore, and that's in the spirit of a span of time of a maximum of 5 years, right? Because we don't know exactly what the time period between financing was. So that is exactly the problem that Milwaukee Habitat for Humanity is trying to address every day of their existence in the last 30 years. And if you're a regular listener to the show, you know that Accunet Mortgage put out a challenge, a $75,000 matching donation challenge. So we were out to raise $150,000 for Milwaukee Habitat. And we just got the results of that effort. I'm going to share those with you when we come back from this last break.
And you're listening to the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show right here on 620 WTMJ.
Getting you into the home of your dreams. Here's more of the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show with Brian Wickert on 620 WTMJ.
And we're back with Brian and David. And gentlemen, I think before the break, you're about to talk about your ongoing collaboration with the folks over at Habitat.
Yeah, Milwaukee Habitat for Humanity held its annual fundraising dinner on October 12th, and they were silly enough to ask me to MC it. And we had a good time, right, David?
Of course.
Yeah, we had a great time. And And so back in August, after they invited me to be the MC, I thought, you know what? and we should maybe mention that Accunet sponsored its very first full home build in 2017.
You were there every day.
Every day. I officially have carpenter's elbow, which is subsiding now finally.
Less golf, I think, is the reason why.
That could be too. So we helped finance a home build over on Garfield and about 30th, just next door to the Washington Park area, neighborhood where Habitat has really been concentrating the last 5 years and is doing a great job, turning, empty lots into owner-occupied blocks. They're really doing that. And by the way, when they convert a block and get it to be mostly Habitat homeowners, the crime rate drops on average by 48% in that block, which is amazing, and it stabilizes the neighborhood. So we said, you know what? Let's do something cool for this event on October 12th, and we said, let's put out a matching challenge. We will give another $75,000, we said, which is the cost of sponsoring a home foundation. And we said, if we can get our Accunet people, posse, vendors, customers, owners, employees to donate something, we'll match it dollar for dollar. And I'm happy to report we made the match.
Hey-o.
We made the match, and so $150,000 was donated at that event. And the other attendees who were not shaken down or hustled by me to donate there came up with another $75,000. So we set a all-time 30-year record for Habitat and raised enough money, net of expenses after the food and beverage, and renting the hall, to build three new Habitat homes in 2018.
Good job by you, Dad.
Oh, thanks, David. It was a good time was had by all and for a terrific cause. Because those homes, by the way, are not given away. The people have to donate 300 hours if they're a single person, or 500 hours if they're a couple.
That's a full-time job for 13 weeks, 500 hours.
Yeah, think about that. So instead of going on vacation, these people are going to their house or sometimes somebody else's house and swinging a hammer and working on it. So there's a huge down payment in sweat equity. On top of that, then, they pay back a mortgage equal to the fair market value of the home. So it ain't free, folks. It's not a giveaway. But it allows somebody who's very low income, typically making $35,000 or less, instead of paying half of their income in rent, they now pay typically 30% of their income for principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And at the same time, completely transform the neighborhood in which they live. So that is one fine organization that we are proud to be affiliated.
You're going to have to do some bicep curls before the build week next year, so you wear yourself out.
Or maybe my technique, But I think I got to do all of the above. Speaking of this coming week, there is a plethora, a cornucopia of economic news coming out. On Monday, as in tomorrow, we're going to get the Federal Reserve's preferred inflation measurement called the Personal Consumption Expenditures Index. And inflation, folks, is the enemy of interest rates. Because if inflation were to go to 4% and the mortgage rate was 4%, well, the person getting the interest would be getting 0%. So right now inflation has been staying under 2, which is one reason why rates have not gone up. So we're going to get an inflation measure on Monday. Consumer confidence on Tuesday. Then we're going to get auto sales on Wednesday, truck sales. What else?
The Fed is
the Fed is
Wednesday
meeting.
Too.
That's going to be a big fat nothing except their comments.
Well, and the possibility that Aunt Janet might not be the Fed chair going forward.
You are talking about Mrs. Janet Yellen.
Janet,
You're calling her Aunt Janet?
It's just because we used to call him Uncle Ben.
Okay, all right. Aunt Janet. But then the other really big economic news every month is the jobs report that comes out on Friday. Currently, or as of the last month in September, the unemployment rate was at a multi-year or multi-decade low of 4.2%.
Yeah.
The forecast is that it's going to inch up to 4.3, probably because more people are returning to search for jobs.
Hopefully.
And so that, folks, is always a potential interest rate mover and stock market mover. Because, again, if you've got a shortage of labor, what do you have to do to attract workers, Dave?
Raise wages.
That's right. And if you raise wages, that increases the price of everything, which is called inflation. And did I just say that inflation was the enemy of interest rates?
Yes.
I think I did. So, in general, the economy is getting better. That makes, right now, because we know what rates are right now. You said it was 3.99 on the 30-year fix with 25% equity and all the other right stuff, making the APR 4.04. That is always fun as a mortgage guy to be able to say a 30-year fix that starts with the number 3, Mark.
Yes.
And, that's where we are right now, but we have no idea how long that's going to last, and the general trend is that they've been inching up. So why not click on the blue button today and find out how much you can save with a no Social Security number required, refi checkup, or not too late to get out there and become a home buyer. Maybe you failed in your mission earlier this year. Get back on the horse now. There's less competition. You can get a rock-solid pre-approval to buy started also by clicking on the blue button at Accunet.com. That's all we got time for today, Mark. We'll see you back here same time next week.
Brian and David, it was a pleasure sitting in with you. I learned a lot. Thank you so much. Community Conversations is coming up next on 620 WTMJ.
The preceding was a paid program. Advice and opinions expressed during the Accunet Mortgage and Realty Show are solely that of the hosts or guests of Accunet Mortgage and Accunet Realty Advisors and not WTMJ Radio or Scripps Media Incorporated.